So is the US government about to start stockpiling Bitcoin? Does it even matter? Is this market environment worth trading or buying altcoins, or should you just stick to Bitcoin? We're going to look at the data and I'll give some of my predictions and thoughts about the future. And before we dive in, I'm Chris Dunn. I'm known as the world's first Bitcoin trading and investing educator, and I'm here to make you a better trader and investor. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the big story over the past month, and this is kind of the July wrap-up video here on YouTube, but the thing that I really wanted to talk about is the big narrative that I actually wrote about here in the Daily Doe and that has been all over the news is the US government going to start hoarding Bitcoin? And if so, what does that look like? And there is a movement amongst some Republicans to try to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, does that matter? Is it smart? Well, yeah, if you're a Bitcoin bull, obviously you think it's smart because we go back to the principles of sound money and how gold, was sound money, but now we're living in the 21st century. And I think it just makes sense to use a better version of hard money, which is Bitcoin. All right. And so I think any smart government is going to start stockpiling Bitcoin, especially into 2023. I think we're going to start seeing a FOMO from certain governments. And I actually tweeted about this the other day where I said, I think that 2025 is the year that governments FOMO into Bitcoin. We'll see if that actually plays out, but we've already started to see some governments adopting Bitcoin as legal currency. I think my speculation is that behind the scenes, there's a few large economies that have already started to do this. And once the waterfall begins to tumble, and once the word gets out that either the US or another major economic power is stockpiling Bitcoin, that's going to create a FOMO rush. So I don't know when that's going to happen or what that looks like or who's going to be the first leader in that, but that is, I think, what the market is looking to price in right now. But as you guys know, over the past really several months, price has been relatively flat. And let's talk about why that is. We'll just go ahead and jump into the charts here. And one thing that that I thought was interesting is this is now the 5th month of consolidation in between 60 and 70K. And if we zoom out here, and again, we're starting by looking at the big picture. In my last video, we talked about the different zoom levels on the markets and how I think anytime you're going to analyze a market, start by looking at either the 12-month, right? Look at the really high level picture from like the International Space Station. Then drill down to a monthly chart and you can begin to see a little more clarity on the important levels. And we know that over the past really 6 months since February, which is where this candle closed, 60K has been the line in the sand. And anytime that we've dipped below it, this has been a trap for shorts. It's been potential dip buying opportunity, even though on the daily chart, it hasn't been super clear. And actually what I did this month for the first time since... Man, I don't even remember the last time I shorted, but I've been riding net long the bull market all the way up here. I did buy a little insurance with a short hedge here when we got below the 200 period moving average and then only held that like maybe a week and then got back to 100% net long. And here's what we're seeing. We're seeing this like tug of war right now where we've had some supply hitting the market, right? So Mt. Gox has dumped a bunch of Bitcoin on the open market. And every day people are trying to figure out, okay, what does that look like? How long is this going to last? The other thing is the German government balance is now at 0. They dumped a bunch of Bitcoin. And so I think it's interesting to see that this market has absorbed that supply that's been hitting, right? So on the bull case, you've got, okay, potential US government stockpiling, and you've got potentially a shift in the US, which has been very, very hostile towards crypto over the past 4 years under the Gensler regime. And now there's hope that maybe that's going to be shifting here later this year. So I think there is a potential big bull case for the US, not just for Bitcoin, but also on just the general crypto front. If the US kind of removes its let's kill crypto stance in the US, which again, I just think is so silly. Obviously, we don't want blatant scams, but when you try to crush an entire industry with Choke Point 2.0, it drives capital and talent outside of the US. And that's exactly what's been happening. So I would love to see a shift in that trend. But let's talk a little bit more actually about altcoins. So one thing that I tweeted about today is the fact that over 85% of altcoins are underperforming Bitcoin over the past year. That's right. Even though we've been in a technical bull market for about 18 months since early 2023, and alts have gone up according to, or in dollar terms, in Bitcoin terms, Bitcoin has gone up more than the majority of altcoins. And why is that the case? Well, here's what I think. The dumb money is still hung over from the FTX implosion, meaning, mom and pop or people that were following Tom Brady into FTX and, like just normies that want to get rich quick. Maybe they watch the UFC and they see all the ads for crypto and they buy on crypto.com, right? Like those are the people that lose, but they're still hung over, right? Like a lot of people got burned really bad. And I think just from what I've seen, that trust in most crypto projects is still really low over the past couple of years. And, if you agree or disagree or see something else, feel free to leave a comment below. What I also noticed is that only about 5% of tokens that have real liquidity, right? Like I'm filtering for things that actually trade on real exchanges and have at least a few $1 million a day in tradable volume. Only about 5% of tokens are up significantly over Bitcoin over the past 12 months. So my conclusion there is that this is what I call a sniper's market, not for those wanting to spray and pray. All right. I've talked about this a lot, like the new school, like crypto YouTubers that are like, here's the top 10 alts you can buy and get rich, right? That shit does not work, right? You do not invest in most altcoins. You trade them, you buy and sell based on high probability trade setups to extract value out of that and put it into something that has a reliable compound annual growth rate like Bitcoin, or you pull it back into fiat and you can reinvest that into other things and build your position sizes over time. You don't want to turn into a shotgun crypto investor where you buy 100 projects and you hold them for years and then you wonder why you lost all your money. That's what a lot of people do. And that's why it's very dangerous to try to follow YouTubers into a bunch of different positions where maybe there's a conflict of interest there. I posted a few charts. The first one is Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance has actually been climbing throughout this entire bull market from early 2023. So what does that mean? It's like, yeah, even if some alts like Ethereum have gone up in dollar terms, you would have been better off holding Bitcoin. The total 3 versus the others chart. So I've actually got the live chart here. You can see that we're looking at a 12-month chart on all 3 of these tickers. The Bitcoin chart is up 57% on the 2024 candle. So year to date, it's up 57% and it's hovering around that prior all-time high. Total 3, which excludes Bitcoin and ETH, is up roughly half that, about 25%. So if you weren't holding Bitcoin and you weren't holding ETH and you were holding everything else, maybe you're up 20, 25%. Now, if you exclude the top 10 by market cap and you look at all the small cap shitcoins, in aggregate, you're only up about 6%, right? So this is where it's dangerous to try to chase alpha if you don't know what you're doing. And if you're just buying and hoping and you're not trading based on setups and market zones and risk management, right? There's a whole skill set to that, which is what we teach at the Skill Incubator. Again, those are just some data points to show you why I think it's been better. And my thesis over the past couple of years has been Bitcoin over alts. If you're gonna trade alts, you want to be a sniper, right? So what does that mean? Well, I'll show you a trade that I've had that is probably one of my better trades over this market cycle was Solana, right? So not only has Solana had, just a real strong narrative this cycle, but it had really strong price action. And I mentioned this in prior videos, but it's worth reminding you guys that this trade setup was very similar to Ethereum at 300 in the last market cycle. And so I've been scaling out of this. I'm still holding a runner, but the idea, if you are going to trade alts in this cycle, is to look for things that, one, have a strong narrative, which Solana's had with all the meme coin craziness, and also a technical chart with beautiful setups, right? That's what you want to look for. So the third and final chart that I wanted to share here on the data point is just a simple scan of a lot of alts compared to Bitcoin. And you can see whenever I filter for, market caps that are over 10 million, trading at least 5 million a day over the past 7 days, and they trade on some of the major US exchanges, and they're not stable coins, obviously. When you sort by this, out of 170, there are dozens and dozens and dozens that are down more than 50% compared to Bitcoin. The worst thing that I think you could do in a market cycle like this is get fundamentaled, which means you buy the bullshit story that an altcoin project talks about, right? Like, yes, tokenomics do matter at a certain level, but at the end of the day, it's your approach that will either make you or lose you money. What would this look like if we did go into like an all tides rising situation? Well, the first thing that we would see is Bitcoin dominance start to go down. If we shifted this longer term trend, which actually started in the beginning of 2023, if this started to roll over and Bitcoin dominance started to go down back below like 50%, that would be a signal that, hey, dumb money is back in, Bitcoin is old news for now, and people are just driving up these prices to crazy levels, meaning they're selling Bitcoin for alts, which I think a lot of people are just realizing that maybe that's not smart in most cases, okay? The other thing that has been interesting is the inverse relationship that we've seen between stocks and Bitcoin. They were actually trading together for the first few months of the year. And then when stocks broke out to all-time highs, Bitcoin pulled back. And then there's been this inverse relationship. You can see we're actually getting a really big pop on the NQ today. But that's another thing that I've been paying close attention to. It hasn't really been super actionable, but it is something that I'm using as just a data point. Also, I wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't gotten your tickets for the Wealth Building Retreat in Austin, Texas, check this out. Just go to wealthbuildingretreat.com. We've got a few days in a small group environment where we're going to do a ton of one-on-one conversations, also group training. We have some guest speakers coming in, and I think this is just going to be awesome. It's been over 5 years since we had our last in-person meetup, and I know you guys are stoked for it, and so are we. So again, guys, let me know if you have any questions. Also, we're getting ready to do a portfolio comparison video series where we're going to look at like $1 million crypto portfolio versus $1 million stock portfolio, what positions we have and why, the news behind the moves, and several other things that I think you guys are going to be really stoked about. So look forward to that, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.